Okay, I think I'm ready. Nah, I didn't have my microphone on, which is going to make recording a podcast quite difficult, I would imagine. Don't worry about my glasses. The dog got them. I'm in the process of actually doing nothing about it because I don't care. It's not in my line of vision. I mean, periphery wise, it's like my hand's coming out of a small storm cloud, but other than that, it's just a pair of glasses, isn't it? This is the third pair of glasses, mind you. The first two were casualties of a much younger dog. I thought we'd pushed through that, but we haven't. Um, I thought we'd pushed through and we'd got to the other side of stealing the glasses. But no, no such luck. Third pair. I reckon I'm about $1,500 into glasses at the moment. I wonder if I can claim that. Welcome to the commute. This is going to be fun. I need to bring some energy. I was told the last time I tried one of these that I wasn't doing. The quote to me was, "You're not making any of your sounds." I was like, "What sounds? Woo, stuff like that." I'm like, What? When did I ever go woo? But I'll attempt to make some sounds along the way. Wow. Wow, it just turned into Shane Bourne for the older comedy fans. So I've missed so much. I mean, I haven't been on air since February 2025. And for those of you playing along at home, it's now nearly mid-August 26. Geez, I've missed some world events and some local events that I would have happily talked about had I had a platform. I've missed Kyle and Jackie O. I've missed Carl blowing up his career. That's one of the strangest things I've ever seen. How quickly that man's career in mainstream media just exploded. Yeah, astounding. Yeah, just one of those things, isn't it? Where you're just ticking along in life. You think, you know what I'll do? I think I'll talk to that far right guy. Tommy Robinson, and see if people are interested in hearing from him. Turns out they're not. And turns out they're not going to put up with someone platforming him either. Anyway, it's a funny old place. Funny old world we live in. So I'm just going to roll through some, if I move around and stuff, just relax. This is what it is. I've got a cup of coffee. I wanted to talk about some of the local things that have been happening. Obviously, Albo and his comments about the Japanese Prime Minister's melons have gone down an absolute treat internationally and diplomatically. Geez, I tell you what, that's the same podcast where he said he'd like to shag Kylie Minogue. So I don't know, Albo. I feel like you need to just ease off some of your female gear. And that's coming from a man with the experience of easing off female gear. I tell you, mate, no one is interested in the Prime Minister doing half attempts at comedy around melons. I mean, yeah, Benny Hill, absolutely. Lots of melons gags there. Just full rub and ball guy's head, just grocery store, fruit market gear where Benny had held up a couple of melons and we loved it. Mind you, that was the 80s. So, and none of us were referring to the Japanese Prime Minister at the time. And I mean, at best, it's naive, isn't it? At best, it's naive to think that you can include commentary about melons and a female without the majority of the world imagining that you're talking about the Japanese Prime Minister's tits. And I'm not even comfortable saying that, but you've put me in that position. I didn't put myself there. That isn't my mind wandering to the gutter. That's just me thinking about, now I'm thinking about the Japanese Prime Minister's tits. So thanks, Albo. Bill Oddie passed away as well recently, which was terribly sad. I loved the Goodies as a kid growing up. I just thought they were the best. It was the Goodies into Doctor Who, Kenny Everett show. It was just like this triumvirate of absolute quality. I wasn't as big a Doctor Who fan as, say, some of the Whovians more lately on ABC2, Rove. But I liked the Tom Baker Doctor. I think Tom Baker must have been in my wheelhouse, because after Tom Baker, I was a bit like, eh. There was the fair-haired sort of guy, the skinnier guy, whose name I can't remember. I enjoyed him a bit. I loved the Sultanans and the Daleks, obviously. But anyway, Bill Oddie later in life became a conservationist and a rabid bird watcher. I mean, that bloke could watch a bird. Albo would love this kind of gear. He could watch a bird from miles off, Bill Oddie. He could stalk a bird just in open grassland. No one was more committed to the idea of watching a bird than Bill Oddie. He loved it. In fact, I think I saw him. I've seen him in hides. A lot of bird watchers. Are they called? What are they called? Birders, bird watchers, but there's another word I can't remember. The other thing I wanted to talk about. So Vale built, and thank you, for giving me an idea of the sort of wacky zaniness that comedy could be. Just loved it. Tim Brooke Taylor's gone now. Graham Garden's the only one of that trio left. He's in his mid-80s. I'm sure he was very saddened by the passing of his old colleague and mate. Bill, good man. I had something else I wanted to say. Twitches, is that what they're called? Twitches? The other thing I want to say is, if you've got anything... When I used to do the radio show, we'd incorporate people's comments back into the next week of the podcast. So I'd like to do that too. Start to build a community around it, build the sheds, let the players come. And that's what I'm going to try to do. We're going to make the clubhouse. I'm going to say I'm a one-man band. I mean, this is the first time I've ever actually been working on my own. And I can't tell you how wonderful it is to not have... And I've worked with some wonderful people, don't get me wrong, who I loved working with. But the idea that I can just come in, sit down, start talking is great. And I've put it off because, I don't know. I wasn't feeling it. And I've been doing this stand-up tour, the Red Card Tour. If you haven't seen it, come along. Grab yourself a ticket. I'm thoroughly enjoying doing the stand-up, absolutely loving it. So come along. I'd love to see you there. But what I wanted to say, and I don't know if I finished the point, get involved on my Instagram. Follow me, please. That's going to help put the kids through school at some point. It's not helping now, but, I'm not being inundated with client approaches. I think for some reason, I think I still have some more time to serve on the sort of commercial sidelines, if you will. And possibly that time may never end, which is why you've just got to do this stuff yourself. If I keep waiting around for people to go, hey, we'd love to work with you, I think it could be a long wait. So do me a favor and follow me on the Insta, and also comment on the Insta when the link goes up for the podcast, so we can get you involved in it. And I say me can read out your comments and stuff and start to build that family. Let me put my phone on silent. Should have done that. This is why I need a team. People to just go, hey, is your phone off? All right, that's enough of a preamble. One of the stories that I just sort of saw recently is one from the vault, and people that know my old radio career all know that I don't care about when stories happen. I don't care what the timeline was. Here's one from the vault. It's a story out of Arizona. A guy called Anthony Menchaca pretended to have Down syndrome. Now, that's not funny, and I'm not saying it is. But he did pretend to have Down syndrome. And then he posed as a woman called Amy, who was apparently his mother. And he put he put an ad onto job sites saying that that she, Amy, his mum, needed help looking after her son. And 3 different carers then followed up and reported to police. this is this is down the track a bit. Reported to police. One of the carers had bathed Anthony whilst he's pretending to have Down syndrome. Had bathed him up to 30 times. I mean, I've had a look at this bloke. And I don't want to generalize about how Down syndrome people can look, but there are some facial sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? There's some signs when you're dealing with Down syndrome people that may not be across the whole sort of Down syndrome world, but you can generally look at someone and say, oh, that person's probably got Down syndrome. I'm really treading carefully here, guys. I think you can hear it in my hesitancy. But this bloke had a bit of a look about him, just enough, I think, for you to sort of go, I don't know. And then if he's bunging on a sort of Dustin Hoffman style Rain Man performance, I could imagine that, there were certain people that might have believed he suffered from Downs. Certainly the woman that bathed him 30 times was a believer. She was a true believer that he had Downs. She couldn't believe it enough. She'd tell the people at the pub, you wouldn't believe this guy. He's got terrible Down syndrome. I bathed him a lot. The thing about the bathing, though, was that he was becoming aroused, and all 3 of the carers that Amy, obviously Anthony as Amy, Anthony pretending to be his own mother, Amy, they'd all reported that Anthony had become aroused whilst being bathed. But then at the same time, Amy had told them that he needed to be bathed, and that there was demands from Anthony and Amy that his genitals needed to be cleaned more thoroughly. And I don't think you have to be pretending to have Down syndrome to want your genitals to be cleaned more thoroughly. I would think that straight off the bat, if I was in that position, I'd want my genitals cleaned thoroughly, whether I was pretending to have Down syndrome or not. I think if you're ever in a situation where someone is bathing you, I think you'd want your genitals cleaned thoroughly. I certainly would. That'd be at the top of my list. Don't worry about behind my ears, sweetheart. Lower. So he was demanding that his genitals be cleaned more thoroughly, and he was also demanding, or rather Amy was demanding on Anthony's behalf, that he be punished for any sort of poor behaviour that may have been taking place during the bathing. And I agree with that too. If I'm pretending to have Down syndrome and you are washing me, and I'm not saying I'm going to do any of this, and I'm certainly not making light of the fact, I'm just covering the story, guys. If I was pretending to have Down syndrome and you were bathing me and I needed you to thoroughly wash my genitals, I would also request that if I misbehave, you punish me, and I don't think that's unreasonable. I don't have a problem with a lot of this, apart from the obvious fact that Anthony's pretending to have Down syndrome, which is not on it. I want to be really clear about that. It did remind me that it was always payment in cash as well, and none of the carers actually met Amy, and that's probably entirely because Amy didn't exist. So it was just a bit of cash on the kitchen bench. Thanks for washing me, kit. Continue with your day, Anthony. Just as soon as he shuts the front door, shakes off the Downs and gets a chance to regroup. Just a chance to regroup for Anthony. Reset. Go again. Think about how wonderful his morning's been. Again. Also, I feel like he's sort of half stolen one of my great ideas, which I won't be able to do now. It reminded me, though, when I was reading this story, and I don't know why it came out of the vault. It's from years ago, but I don't know why. I can't, like so many of these things, I can't remember why it popped up again. But it did. And it reminded me of Sydney 2000 in the Paralympics when the Spanish basketball team, 10 out of the 12 players were totally fine. There was no impairment in any way. There was no mental impairment. There was no physical impairment. They were just 10 blokes who just decided they were going to get together and win gold. Imagine the poor 2 blokes that were impaired. They must have been like, Jesus Christ, how bad am I at basketball? These guys are cutting it up. It was a bit of a giveaway when they beat Japan by 67 points. Even the coach said to them, hey, fellas, just wind it back a touch. We can't be sliding under the radar with 67-point drubbings. The reason we all found out about this Paralympic team, the Spanish B-ballers, is because there was actually a whistleblower on the inside. He was an undercover journalist by the name of Carlos Ribagorda. Went undercover. I don't know what sort of inspired him to go undercover. I'm not sure what part of Carlos got a sniff that there was something going on. But whatever piqued his curiosity, he dug deep. And I'm assuming Carlos actually must have been bunging on some kind of impairment as well. Carlos reports that there was no IQ test to get into the team. This is to get into the Spanish Paralympic basketball team. No IQ test, no psychiatric evaluation at all. The only thing that he had to do was have his blood pressure checked, and here's the bit I love. He had to be able to do 6 push-ups. If it's blood pressure and 6 push-ups, I'm a half chance. Point guard. I'm a chance at 5'9", and the low side of 5'9". I'm a chance of fronting up. I got a couple of bloody clutch plays in me. Don't you worry about that, particularly if I'm, fortunate enough as an able-bodied guy to pull one of the opposition who's struggling. I feel like I could shoot a 3 over most of those guys. And I might be wrong. I guess I'll never know because I'll never be given the opportunity to join a Paralympic basketball team, which is a shame. They went on to win gold, obviously, because 10 of them were totally fine. And those medals were later stripped. Apparently the whole thing was about trying to attract clients and, commercial interest and money to be made out of it all. It's a shame. It's a shame for a couple of reasons. Anthony Menchaca's ruined it for everyone who wants to pretend they've got Down syndrome and get baked. He's just blown the lid off that. And, the Spanish basketball team, 10 of those blokes have just ruined it for everyone else who thought they could cheekily slide in there and win gold. And hats off to Carlos Ribagorda while we're here. And to the 3 carers who went to the police in the Anthony Menchaca case. Hats off to the whistleblowers. Often maligned, ridiculed, singled out, bullied into silence, but not on this occasion. Thank you guys for pointing out what could only be described as an absolute travesty. Jeez. Excuse me while I have a sip of my cup of joe. Lovely. I don't know what else to talk about. There's I tell you what I did want to talk about just briefly without going too far down the road of a Marty tutorial, but I'm happy to attach clients to that. So far we've got 2 segments, one out of the vault, and we can have the sound effect of a vault opening and maybe a cash converters could get involved in that. One out of the vault. And then we've got this one now, Marty tutorial, which could be, I don't know, compare the pair, that kind of thing. It's super fun. Anyway, Geelong Football Club have found themselves in an absolute disastrous scenario, haven't they? CEO Steve Hocking looks like he's in trouble. Craig Drummond, who was the chairman, who was the president of the Carlton Football Club at the time, that one of their guys with a bit of a history of concussion had a clause put into his contract that down the track there'd be no um, pursuing the club for any sort of brain trauma that might unfold later in life. And I mean, that's nutshelling it. Absolutely nutshelling it. Craig Drummond's since gone on to be the chairman of the AFL Commission, which puts him in a slightly awkward situation, I would have thought, given that he was president of the Geelong Football Club when he failed to alert the AFL or indeed the AFLPA of a contract that he was putting in place that indemnified the club against any future sort of issues around player welfare. It's obviously, I mean, the AFL does so many things right in this space, the MND space, particularly with Neil Danaher and even more recently Spud's game. It's astounding to me that a bloke can survive this kind of controversy when his job now at the AFL is player health and safety. It's a big part of his remit. But I guess that's not real. This isn't a witch hunt. And I saw Kane Corns talking about this. And for people outside of the sort of Victoria and AFL interested states, Kane Corns was a 300 gamer for Port Adelaide. And he's a pundit now who isn't afraid to speak his mind. He's described the sort of reaction to this as ridiculous and outrageous. And I don't know if he's right. I feel like concussion is going to be the big story, and I don't think I'm alone. Going forward, it just feels like this kind of behaviour where clubs are going directly to players and players' families to get an outcome that suits them and their purposes moving forward, regardless of the fact that they'll say it was in the player's interest. It just isn't right. What alerted me to how ridiculous the whole thing was is that Marty Pask, I believe is the player manager's name, he had no idea that this negotiation had taken place and no idea that these clauses were in the final agreement. I hope I got his name right. That to me is just extraordinary. Marty Paskey? Paskey. That to me is extraordinary that the player manager wouldn't know. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether Hocking and Drummond can maintain their roles at Geelong and AFL House respectively. AFL House's initial response to it was that they didn't have a real problem with it. Well, that's certainly changed as media interest has sort of swarmed them with questions and follow-up issues that they have with it, I'm sure. This is the thing about the AFL, though, is my God, what a brutal business. Anyway, look, I just wanted to sort of bring that to the table because I think concussion's a huge issue. And I think we need to really be protecting player welfare. The AFL PA weren't aware of it either. I mean, to me, that's just extraordinary. We don't want to be setting that kind of precedent within clubland. Moving on. Notice how I just move on now. Normally I would have played a song or fired off a Bunnings ad there. Any Bunnings want to get involved, give me a ring. Once again, feel free to send me your feedback on Insta and I'll look at it. Don't you worry about that. There's no one else to look at it these days. And, you know, if it's just, what's the word, fuckwittery, I'm not interested in it. And I won't really treat it seriously. Here's another one I saw the other day, nude golf. And I love this stuff. Nude golf, this is right in my wheelhouse. So it was in Darwin. And how's this for bad luck on Nude Golf Day? It's the coldest day in Darwin since 1942 when they decided to have nude golf. 13 degrees. Pretty fresh. Overnight 13. I mean, that I wouldn't think Darwin would get much colder than that. I mean, but the organisers couldn't believe it. They've moved it up to Darwin thinking, well, we can't fail here. At least we'll get some warm weather. No. But I love this story because here's the kicker to me that people aren't really treating the idea of naturalism and nudity with the sort of respect that it deserves in terms of body positivity and embracing the outdoors. And why shouldn't we be able to be ourselves and free, and all the bumps and lumps and scars and different shapes and sizes should be celebrated. So get your kid off and tee that ball up for me, Jenny. Just swing around to the right there for me, sweetheart. um, here's the giveaway. Most of the people that play nude golf in Darwin that day, it was their first game of golf ever. And that's how I know. Are my glasses driving you guys crazy for the people that are actually watching this? That's how I know that people weren't taking nude golf seriously. Because if it's your first round of golf, you're not there because you love golf. You're there because you love to see ladies' vaginas, and I can't be any more honest than that. And that's the only reason I'd be there too. I mean, I'm not going to get to celebrate my body and to be body positive about myself. I'm going to check out other people and the men as well. Please don't feel as though I wouldn't be checking out a couple of old sets of nuts, a couple of cag bags, and a little bit of candy. Of course I'm going to. I'm not an idiot. Sean Brennan was on holidays minding his own business on Nude Golf Day in the Northern Territory. He actually turned up for a conventional round of golf at the golf course, and they've said, "Oh, mate, you won't believe it. It's Nude Golf Day." He's gone, "Are you kidding?" And then he said, "You know what? I'm still going to play." And he got the kid off. He reckons it was one of the best days of his life, Nude Golf Day. He thought he was just going to, conventional round, and he said, "You know what, I'm going to join them." And he did, and he loved it. He said it was better than conventional golf, nude golf. The organisers, Steve and Tanya Bates, or as I like to call him, Master Bates. I mean, Jesus. Steve and Tanya Bates. Master Bates. I wonder if she gets called Master Bates. Mistress Bates. It's not as, I'm assuming Tanya Masturbates. Steve and Tanya Masturbates. People think it's just a sex club, said Steve and Tanya. It's about body positivity. It's about accepting your body. It's about starting conversations. A scar can start a conversation, says Master Bates. It's all the shapes and sizes as discussed. Miss Bates, her parents came along to Nude Golf Day. So you got Steve and Tanya Bates, and then you've got Tanya's mum and dad, who also had a nude round of golf with their daughter. Now I'm going to draw the line there. I'm going to draw the line at playing nude golf with mum. With dad, in the old days, absolutely. Dad had a dressing gown that never met when we were kids growing up. I saw more of Dad's testicles than my own for many, many years. Beautiful set of nuts, my father. Stunning testicles. I'll never forget them. Just beautiful, beautiful balls in what could only be described as a wonderful ball bag from the old man. And quality ball bag work from a dad. Every now and then you want to see your dad's nuts. Just to touch base, just like bang. Thanks. Bang. Got him. You've still got it. You're a man. You're an older man. But every now and then I think it's important for men, not boys. I want to be clear on that. Although, really, I did see a lot of dad's testicles when I was a boy. Not in a, let's be clear about this, in a making breakfast at the kitchen bench kind of way. Not in a slow creaking of the door after everyone's sort of gone to bed kind of way. I hope that hasn't triggered anyone, and if it has, I apologise. But I don't want to see mum nude on the golf course, teeing up. I don't want to see her bending over, line up a putt. I don't want to be behind mum when she reaches into the cup to grab her ball. I don't want to see any of that. I don't want to watch mum's tit flap sideways as she eases into a 5-iron, I can't tell you how little interest I have in that. I mean, it's none. Yeah, there's something about seeing your mum nude that I think at best it has to be, oh, I didn't know you were in here. Sorry, mum. And that's it. Not a, hey, mum, can you grab my, the hybrid? Yeah, I'm going to try and hit one off the deck here. Take it up to the hole. Oh, and can you grab me a tea? Yeah, they're down lower in the bag. Yeah. Thanks, mate. Whew. I don't need any of that. But good luck to him. Nude golf. It's a thing. There's other things I can think of that I'd do nude before I did golf. I can't think of them now. Obviously, jet skiing springs to mind. Skydiving. Polo. Water polo and polo. Go-karting. I mean, the list goes on of stuff I'm happy to do nude. It's just not golfing with mum, I think is the key, is the takeaway. Speaking of mum, I actually rang her to get reminded of whether or not we went to a bullfight in Mexico when we were kids. I knew we'd been, but I couldn't remember the details of it. And I'm talking about this because I saw a bison attack an old guy at Yellowstone National Park. This is going back a few weeks now. And the bison crept around the trees where the old bloke was sort of trying to hide. And he couldn't hide from the bison because the bisons were in rut. I don't know if you say they're in rut or whether it's rutting season or I'm not exactly sure how you word it. But the bisons were in rut, which means they're on for it. You know, they're charged up. They're looking at other men. It's an alpha. It's like Carl and Eddie Maguire. No, that doesn't. They're not doing that anymore. It's like alphas. You know what I mean? Just alphaing off. Anyway, this old grandfather's hiding in the trees because he's realised the bison's found, it got the shits. And the bison sees the grandfather. He whips him up into the air, about 8 feet. The grandfather's fine, but Jesus Christ, he was lucky. Lucky he wasn't gored by the bison. I'm always amazed when I see videos from Yellowstone National Park, people just near these animals, or in any parks. You see someone who's down on the roadside near a bear. It's like, are you an absolute simpleton? You do understand that I think I just hit my mic, apologies. You do understand that that's a bear, treating it like it's a dog. Extraordinary. I do it a lot with all sorts of animals. Moose tend to be pretty angry. Anyway, this bison's had a go. And it reminded me, because then the next story I read shortly after that was the running of the bulls in Pamplona. And I was like, Jesus Christ, they're still running with the bulls in Pamplona. That to me, if you run with the bulls in Pamplona, you don't get to complain about anything that happens to you on that day. If you get gored, you get torn open, if you get cornered, if you get trampled by humans in a rush to get away from a bull, whatever happens that day, you deserve. Because you've decided that running with a bull is the answer. And I'm assuming there's sangria involved in this. I'd love to put a breathalyzer over these blokes. Hang on a sec, I've got to have a sip of my coffee. I'd love to run a breathalyzer over these blokes and find out just how blind they are. Running with the bulls doesn't feel like something you do sober. I've known a couple of blokes that have run with the bulls. One of them was actually Jules Lund. I think he was covering it off for a story for Getaway. We spoke to him about this years ago, when Fifi Box and I were still working together in not the early 2000s, but you know what I mean. And the bull's horn, from memory, actually clipped Jules's shoe and flicked his shoe off, which there is footage of somewhere in the world. And I thought, Jesus, Jules, what are you doing? I didn't know. I don't remember. I'm imagining he was sober. I don't think you could be out there with a getaway crew drinking alcohol unless you're Ben Dark, which always reminds me of the Ben Dark Catriona Roundtree disaster that unfolded in a hot mic moment, I believe, for Ben Dark, where he might have spoke casually and openly about what he thought of Catriona, and I don't think we saw much of Darky on Getaway after that. You got to be careful about the way you talk about female co-hosts. I've learnt that. Jesus Christ. Some of them are quite sensitive, and I'm not singling any of my co-hosts out for being sensitive, but Jesus Christ, a couple of them have been. They know who they are. So I rang Mum and I said, we went to a bullfight once, didn't we? And she said, and I remember it. And Mum said, yeah, it was in Tijuana in Mexico. I was a kid, maybe 10. We were traveling because Dad had won a scholarship to do some study, and then on the way home from England, we stopped in America and did a van holiday, and it was one of those vans where the toilet was disguised as a seat, so you could be seeing some of the most picturesque countryside the world has to offer, and at the same time watching your sister take a shit. Beautiful. So we're in Tijuana. I remember before we went in, for some strange reason, Mum bought a bottle of Coke, and my memory of this is that we were in some sort of giant square, like an Italian or Mexican square, like a big piazza. Is that what they're called? And Mum made us brush our teeth with Coca-Cola just standing in the middle of the square. I don't know why we couldn't have done that in the hotel room. Maybe Mum just bought toothbrushes on the way to the bullfight. I should have asked her, actually. I forgot to ask that. So anyway, we brushed our teeth with Coca-Cola, which was strange, but, it sort of defeats the purpose, I would have thought. But I guess you're not using the water. So we get into the bullfight. Mum told me that her and Dad paid for seats in the shade, which cost more because it was a hot day. And then she said we were right next to the fence, the sort of demarcation line between sun and shade. And she said that she paid all that extra money for the shade to swing around and immediately put the people on the other side of the fence in the shade as well. So, she was money well spent. And I remember from that day, men on padded horses came out with giant spears and stabbed the bull. Stabbed it before anything happened. So these blokes on padded horses had come out with long spears, and they drive them into the back of this bull, partly to fire it up, I'm assuming, and partly to slow it down in one of those crazy instances of logic. And so they would hurt the bull, I suppose. I mean, I'm starting to riff now. I don't know anything about bullfighting, but I know what I saw. I think they hurt the bull, then the bull, is either super angry or starting to slow down and bleed out a little bit. So then the bullfighter comes out and he does his bit with his cape. And I don't think I realised that the art in bullfighting is the kill at the end. I mean, how would I know? I was 10. Why am I there is another question. It's terrible parenting. Because I still remember this, the trauma around this as well. I mean, it's forced me to really think about eating meat. I mean, I chose to. So, as it turns out, I've been a committed meat eater and will remain so. But if ever you were going to not eat meat, I mean, this would be your starting point. A 10-year-old going to a bullfight could turn a lot of kids into vegetarians, not me, because I wasn't going to let the team down like a vegetarian does. So the bull and the fighter do their thing. He waves his cape a few times, couple of narrow misses. But the whole time, he's sticking things in the bull that have sort of, those things that are on curtain rails with like the tassel on the end of it. He's sticking those things into the back of the bull. And then the coup de grace at the end is he drives his sword straight through the back of the neck of the bull and kills it. And the bull, bang, drops dead. Then the blokes on the padded horses come back out. strap up its legs and drag it out of the ring. There's nothing. There's no dignity attached in the bull's exit, or entry for that matter. I mean, it's just a bad day to be a bull. Every now and then one of the bloody bullfighters cops it and everyone goes, yeah, that seems fair, that every now and then a bullfighter gets killed. But the ratios does seem to be in favour of the bullfighters. The other thing I remember from that day is the bull jumped out of the ring. You know, the ring, probably, I don't know, 6-7 foot high ring fence around the ring. The bull got up into the crowd and was running around the seats. I remember that vividly too. And I don't know if that's a rare occurrence. I feel like that can happen. So this bull gets up into the crowd, not near us, but people were peeling off left, right, and centre. I mean, I brushed my teeth with Coke. I've seen a bull get murdered and slain with a sword, padded horses stabbing at blokes in ornate dress with capes. I mean, the best word to use would be to suggest that they were mincing around. It was highly camp. And then back into the van and watch Dad have his shit. All right. I sort of feel like that's enough for today. I look forward to talking to you next week when there'll be other stuff to cover off. Maybe one from the vault, maybe another Marty tutorial. Maybe we can get some client involvement. Listen, do me a favor, follow me on Instagram. I'd love that. I really would. Check out the pod in the coming weeks. It's just going to be organic. So please repost, let people know it's happening. Let people know you've heard it. Let me know what you think of it. If you've got anything to add in the comments, maybe your parents took you somewhere they shouldn't have when you were a kid. Maybe you've pretended to have Down syndrome, or indeed an injury of some kind to get out of something, or encourage some other behaviour from another human being. Maybe you've played nude golf, or what have you done in the nude? Jump into the Instagram where you see the post for the podcast. Get involved, and I can bring those messages back through the show. Let's build the clubhouse, guys. We're starting from scratch. There's no one but me. I'm doing it myself. I've got one guy who helps me upload it, and I've got another guy who is just a wonderful man, who is touring me around the country at the moment for the Red Card Tour. So come and see the show. Follow me on Insta. Get involved in the chats, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.